One of the jobs that needs doing before we get the boat out on the water is to put some leather around the oars where they go through the oar locks to protect them, because obviously they're wood against metal. So you put a leather sleeve on, and this protects the oar and can be changed when it wears out. They sometimes come with plastic ones, but these didn't, so as it happens I've got the remains of a leather tool bag that Cuckoo gave me that somebody chucked in a skip at work, and I made a sheath or two out of the leather, but when I knew I was going to do this I saved the rest of it to do this job. Excuse me, what's the matter, boy? I know, but they're out. I know, but they're out. Yeah, I'm doing a bit of filming, mate. I'm doing a bit of filming. It's next door's cat. He's lonely. Yes, I'll come back to you. See ya. Where was I? Yes, leather sleeves to protect the oars. So the first thing you need to do, well, I've trimmed up the leather into one long piece, which is enough to do both oars with, and I'm just trying it on there now. Just what I mean about getting a nice flat seam down the oar cover when I sew it on. And it's a little bit lumpy and bumpy, so I'm going to try, I might just wet it out with some water and then just wrap it around here with some tape, just to smooth it out and give it some pre-shape before doing the final cut to size, because I think it's just a little touch too long. By the time you've sewn it up, I think there's a little bit of a little bit of gap underneath the leather. So I'm going to do that now and leave it overnight before I go on with any other steps. But I'm pleased that I saved this bit of leather, because I know you can get it online, but it's not easy to work out the sizing on the sites I've looked at, because I thought about buying some leather for making a nice guitar strap with to go with one of my guitars, but I bottled out because it didn't seem easy to find out the lengths that you were going to get. But this is going to work, so we'll carry on with that. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm going to cut off a couple of straps as well, which once this is sewn on, and go round with once or twice to provide an extra collar, which should help stop the oar from sliding out through the rowlock when they're deployed, and it's more of an extra little bit of security. I think also people tie them on to the boat with a bit of string as well, which might be a good idea, but they're glued on and secured maybe with a copper nail through as well, just to provide an extra little bit of a stop for the oar lock or rowlock, whichever it is. Right, I did a bit of research on YouTube and I found three or four different videos on sleeving the oars. One of them was good and the other three didn't really show very much of the process. In fact, one of them showed them stitching up an oar, and when they showed the finished article, the stitching was entirely different. So I don't know what was going on there, but the idea basically is to make the leather long enough to go around, and surprisingly I thought they might have actually wet it to stretch it a little bit, but this guy was in well, it's quite a famous series of articles and videos on how to do things boat building wise, off centre harbour, and he did a very quick and neat job of sleeving an oar, and they use what's called a baseball stitch, which is using thread and 2 needles and going in and out in a certain way, which I'll show you later. First of all, I've marked up using my Acme thread gauge, which is a fork which I've sharpened to make indents all the way along the line, about 3mm in from the edge, and now I'm going to drill those holes with a 1.5mm drill bit, which is just big enough to get those 2 needles through easily, one at a time, and we go down, stitched all the way down, and then stitch all the way back up when you're sewing it onto the oar. And then there's another little bit after that which is glued on, surprisingly, with contact adhesive, and that's a little ridge around the end to stop the oar from falling through the roller. In this case it's just to stop it falling out, because obviously the oar slides in through the top, but other ones are actually rings, and I suppose you've got to remember to put the ring on before you put the collar around. So I'm going to drill this now on the drill press, and then I shall get back to you when I'm ready to start doing some sewing. I'm not going to bother counting how many holes I did then, and it's the same drill size and needles that I use for sewing the knife sheaths that I've made, and the thread as well. It's waxed string and it should stand up to the elements, and it's good and tough. So I'm going to now get the oar set up in the vise and carry on with the next part. I've got the oar set up so that the blade is vertical, and I've marked down the centre line of that of the shaft with a dot at each end. These oars are actually made of 2 pieces joined together, so I'm using the join as the centre line, and it's in line with the blade being vertical. And I'll put a dot at each end so that I can keep the stitch line nice and straight all the way down. The stitching will be on the top of the oar as it's presented to the water, so it's not going to rub against the oar lock in any way. I'm not sure I've got enough thread. In fact, I'm pretty certain I've got not enough thread to go all the way back up to the top. I should just have enough to get down to the end and then start a new thread to go up, providing this leather's flexible enough. I seem to think that this is quite a bit thicker than the leather that I saw them using on the off-centre harbour. But basically, this baseball stitch, you go in from the outside, pull it through with the pliers, and you alternate that on both sides. I like lacing a boot. Mind you, I don't lace my boots like that, I lace them slightly differently. And then pull it tight. And then once again, in the middle and out over the top of the other side. Likewise with that one. then cinch them up. It's going quite nice and evenly. I'm working my way down. As he said on the video, to use a little bit of contact adhesive. I've got this polymer grab adhesive from B&Q, because they don't seem to do Evo stick anymore, which is what this guy had used, but that may be due to something to do with them youngsters and bags and Evo stick, I don't know, but this is going not too bad. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, and again the off-centre harbour was a great help here, is whereabouts do you position the leathers. Now when I put the oars together on the boat spread out, they touched, and I used that as a measurement to the rollock, and it actually turns out to be right in the ballpark centre of the leather. And there is a rule of thumb that says you have 18 parts of the oar to the middle of the leather and 7 parts this side. So you divide the oar up into 25 parts and do it in that ratio of 18 to 7 to give you the position of your leather. And these are 8-foot oars, and that is 2.4 meters to all intents, and that gives you measurements of 172 centimeters and 172 centimeters, sorry, and 67 centimeters. So it all works out just about as it is. The boat's 5 foot across the beam, so I have a feeling these oars might be slightly short. I'm not entirely sure, but they were the longest ones I could get. There are boats with a wider beam, usually up to about 5.5 to maybe 6 foot. But once you get to 6 foot, apparently it becomes harder to row because of the leverage that you need. Although some people use a lot longer oars anyway for their boats, or, and sweeps is another name for them. And I think when you get to the like the Oxford and Cambridge boat crews using 1 oar each, 1 blade each, they're using quite long oars in the first place to get all that oomph that they need on a very skinny boat. So these, for the time being, are probably about right for the boat. I don't know if I'll have to look once I've tried it. Obviously I'll have to look and see whether they are just about the right length, or whether I need to look for some longer ones or make some longer ones, in which case I've got a pattern here, and it's only decent pine really. I don't think it's even anything special pine wise, just it's not free, so that might be the tricky bit, is finding some stuff that's not free. But we'll cross that bridge, we'll go under that bridge when we come to it. The other oar I only did 1 pass with the thread, because this is quite stiff leather and the thread is quite thick. I think that's probably enough. I can't get the needles back through again to do another run anyway. So if it starts to fray and break, I might look at some thinner yarn and see if I can get that up with some thinner needles and do it that way. But once again, at the moment it's okay, and I've still got the I think they call it a button the collar to go round the top of them, but I shall stitch up these first before I put those on. And they're just glued on with adhesive. I think this is probably good enough. I don't see any problem with it. And then that will be the oars done, hopefully. So I've got my method of propulsion. I've glued the strips of leather around the top edges of the sleeves, and it's this white glue. It looks a bit like Sikaflex actually, and when it's all gone off and dried, I'll take the tape off that's holding them wrapped around and then clean up the white glue, and she should be hunky dory. The stitching went okay, apart from I did snap one of the threads whilst I was sewing on the sleeve, but I managed to fudge that, and it's not going to come undone, or if it does I'll just take it apart and do it again. So much for hoping that glue would dry clear. I'll attack it with a bit of sandpaper. Let's have a look at the tape coming off. Well, they're stuck anyway. That's alright. I've got some boot polish. Just going to tidy them up a bit with that. I got one of those pool noodles from Lidl's or Aldi's, and I've cut it up to make a protector to go over the rails for when I put the strap on to keep the boat onto the trailer whilst it's being transported. And I've also come up with an idea because of the noise they make as I flip them over, and when it's being driven along the road, obviously the rollocks are going to rattle against the sides and chip the paint off. So I've cut a bit of the noodle off because it fits nicely into the rollock, and then I knocked up a couple of pouches out of some bits of leather. I'm going to put one over each the rollocks with the noodle in it. And stitch it on, and then when I drop them or when we're moving, we're not going to rattle against the side and damage the paintwork or the fiberglass underneath. So I'm going to do that now. That's the ratchet strap on. I think I'm going to finish this one here and go on to the next project. So that's the oars done, ratchet strap and the rollock protectors on. So that's a little side venture there, all done and dusted. And I did see a tip the other day that said if you put a ratchet strap on something, the air vibrates it and it makes a dreadful noise, which it does, because we've had this before when we went out with the canoe the first time, and I think we must have done something like this. But if you put a cross in it, if you twist it once, it can't make that noise. So in the glorious sunshine here, I'm going to say thanks for watching, look forward to reading your comments, and I'll see you all soon. Cheerio.